This week we are reviewing a red wine varietal that is a great summer sipper and as such is best served lightly chilled. So in this week's tip of the week, we are going to talk about what to do when a restaurant serves you a red wine that's just a little too warm. All of that coming up next. Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. This week we're talking about Gamay, a red wine varietal that is pretty synonymous with the region of Beaujolais in France, or as the kids like to call it, Bojo. It is a grape that makes up 98% of all of the wines made in Beaujolais, and it's about 75% of all Gamay in the world is grown in Beaujolais. You'll find it in a couple other cool climate places like Switzerland or Canada or even Turkey, and it's often blended with Cabernet or Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is actually a parent of the Gamay grape, and it was believed to have been first documented in the Burgundy region in about sometime in the 1300s, and didn't last very long there. It was kind of believed to be an inferior grape, so it was more or less banished, sent to the south in the region that is Beaujolais. Now in Beaujolais, there are a couple of different regions inside of it. So there are multiple tiers, if you will, of Beaujolais that you can purchase. So the one that everyone's pretty familiar with is Beaujolais Nouveau, which comes out on the third Thursday of every November, the week before Thanksgiving. And it is a wine that is made very quickly. They harvest the grapes, they press, they ferment, and it is out the door in like a month and a half. So if you ever see a Beaujolais Nouveau, make sure that it is the same year on the bottle as the year you're buying it. Anything older than that, no good. But Beaujolais Nouveau is kind of unique because of the way that it is made. It is made in a method known as carbonic or semi-carbonic maceration. So maceration is just a fancy word for the term of the grape juice and the grape skins being in contact with each other. Now, what they do in Beaujolais is kind of unique. They do it in a couple other places, but they will put clusters of whole grapes in a vat and seal it without actually crushing the grapes. And so they kind of ferment inside their own skins, and that brings some of the color to the pulp, which is otherwise colorless, and releases some carbon dioxide. It kicks all the oxygen out of there. So it is an anaerobic process without any oxygen, which produces a little bit of alcohol, not much. They still have to then crush the grapes and send it through secondary fermentation. So it's a process that is used specifically because the Gamay grape is really high in acidity, and this process reduces that acidity a little bit. It also causes the wine to have very low tannins because the crushed skins and the juices aren't in contact for very long. So it tends to be a little lighter in tannins and a little bit lighter in acidity than it would be, but it is still a high acid wine. What's also kind of cool about Beaujolais Nouveau and some of the other Beaujolais, the entry level beyond Beaujolais Nouveau, is that because of that semi-carbonic or carbonic maceration process, it gives us some really unique flavors. Sometimes people describe Beaujolais Nouveau as having characteristics of banana or even bubblegum. Unfortunately, the one I'm having here today is not a Beaujolais Nouveau. I doubt I'm going to get any of the bubblegum flavors, which I'm kind of bummed about because I'd love nothing more than to be able to describe this as tasting like Bubblicious. Probably not going to be the case with this one though. Maybe I'll do a video next year on Beaujolais Nouveau. Beyond Beaujolais Nouveau is just the AOC, or the area of control in Beaujolais, that is made up of about 100 different villages. So those villages can make a higher level of wine that would say on the bottle Beaujolais Villages, or if you want to say it in French, Beaujolais Village. Those villages might have their name appear on it. There's about 38 that would have their name appear on it or have the words Beaujolais Villages. Those are a little bit higher quality. Maybe they run some better slopes, better soil. At the highest level would be something like this one here that doesn't actually say the word Beaujolais on it. This would say Appellation Fleury Contrôlée. So Fleury is one of the 10 cru, or the highest level, CRU, cru level of Beaujolais. So this one, there's another one that I've seen here in town where I live, the village of Morgon. So some of those can be a lot more intense, even more fruit forward, maybe even bolder, and give us some very different styles than a basic Beaujolais, or certainly different from a Beaujolais Nouveau. What you need to look out for with these though is that these are only about $25. So the highest level of Beaujolais that you can get is a relatively inexpensive wine. So I think this is a grape really worth seeking out and a tremendous value. Let's get started in tasting. Today's wine is Gamay from producer Jean-Paul Brun, who makes a fabulous wine in the region of Beaujolais. And Robert Parker once called him one of the top producers in all of Beaujolais. So I'm excited to give this a try. This is just a straight up Beaujolais. This is not one of the villages, nor is it a cru, but it was about $17. And because of the producer and because of the importer, this is imported by Louis Dresner, who is one of the best producers of Beaujolais. So felt comfortable trying this one out. This also happens to say Vieille Vigne on it, which, as you know from a previous video, means old vines. So looking forward to trying a old vine Beaujolais here. The word L'Ancien is on the label, just to, the producer thought because these are old vines, that would be a clever little name for his wine. So this is a beautiful color. So not too surprising, this is pretty light in color. I'm gonna call this kind of a pale ruby. It's just beautiful. I'm using a Burgundy or a Pinot Noir glass today, and I know in the previous video I said you don't really need that many wine glasses, but I have many wine glasses, so I'm using the one I want today. Woo! Strong perfumey nose, love it. Yeah, good bright cherry on the nose. Maybe some pomegranate. And definitely some floral and perfumey notes to it as well. I'm not really picking up on anything like banana or bubblegum, unfortunately, but I didn't expect it. This actually did not go through carbonic or semi-carbonic maceration, just traditional destemming, pressing, and careful crushing of the grapes. Lovely. Let's give it a try. This certainly has high acid. I could tell immediately that this was going to be a high acid wine when I got a mouthful of it. Really nice soft tannins that kind of dried out the bottom part of my mouth real quick, and then the acidity just kind of washed it away really quickly. So I like that contrast, that yin and yang of the soft tannins and the bright acid. Body's pretty light on this. I mean, you can tell by the color and the legs on it. I want to say this is a 13%. Yeah, 13%. So not much alcohol. I felt just a little bit of heat, but not very much. It is a dry wine. I don't really pick up on much sweetness, but the fruit is beautiful. Really great red fruits on this. I'm getting a little strawberry now on the palate, and certainly that bright cherry sensation that I had earlier. There's some minerality, which because of the soil in Beaujolais is not too surprising as well. This comes from more the southern part of Beaujolais that has more alkaline soils, which is going to enhance the acidity. But I'm just getting some of the minerality of the soil coming through. I really like this. And again, Beaujolais is such a great summertime sipping wine. Beaujolais Nouveau, comes out the week before Thanksgiving, and it's great that time of year as well. But this has a little bit more body and more complexity to it than Nouveau. And that's the beauty of Beaujolais, is that you do not have to spend much money, even for the top wines. For the ones, this Cru, I think I paid $20 for it. So I'd say the best Beaujolais you can find is going to cost you maybe $30 to $40, even at that, if that. So this is a wine I'd really recommend seeking out. I got a little pepper finally. So I'm going to call this pretty moderate, medium intensity on the palate as well as on the nose. Got the bright cherries, got the strawberry, got a little bit of pepper, a little bit of minerality. And I'm going to call it a medium finish. It's not super quick, but it's there for a little while. I like this wine. This is not going to last long tonight. So, and the great thing about Beaujolais as well, in addition to being such a tremendous value, is that because of this high acidity, I think this pairs with so many different things. With such a light body and without much tannin, I wouldn't go too heavy on something that's high in fat. Like, this would not be a good ribeye wine. but this would be good with chicken. This would be good with anything grilled, barbecue, salmon. Pretty versatile wine. You can do an awful lot with a high acid, low tannin wine. As far as the score goes, this gets good points for balance. Length, kind of halfway there. The intensity, I'm going to give it a little credit. The flavors are really bright and refreshing, and I'm going to give it a little point for the intensity of the flavors. Not terribly complex. There's a little bit more complexity than I actually expected, but still not a ton. So I'm going to score this 6.5 on my 10-point scale. Good wine, good value, and for I think about $17, this was well worth it. Goldilocks was onto something with her porridge. You don't want your wine too hot. You don't want your wine too cold. You want it just right. And particularly when you're at a restaurant and you're paying that kind of markup on a bottle, they should serve it at the right temperature. And as we talked about in the video and the tip of the week last week, there are ideal temperatures for different styles of wine. So red wine like a Gamay that we were tasting earlier today, that needs to be served lightly chilled. 55 to 60 degrees is ideal for that. So what do you do when you're at a restaurant and you have a red wine that is just too warm? Regardless of what type of wine it is, let's just say it's too warm. What are your choices? Well, number one, you can ask for an ice bucket. And I have done that, and you should feel no shame in doing so either. If they are that clueless about serving their red wines at the right temperature, who cares what they think about you ordering an ice bucket to go with your red wine? Number two, what you can do is, maybe it's not that bad, you need a whole ice bucket. You can ask for a chiller, and it's gonna look like this. Either it's stainless steel or maybe it's marble. They'll keep it in a fridge or a freezer and bring it to you, and you put your wine in that, and that'll keep it to at least prevent it from getting warmer, maybe even chill it down a little bit. And it is a great option if you're having red wine at a restaurant and you're eating outside and it's a warm day, just to maintain its temperature and not get warmed up by the outdoor temperature. But the thing that I actually probably do most often is I use my wine glass and my water glass to do a little science experiment, if you will, and improve the temperature that way. So let's just say I've ordered a bottle of wine and they present it to me. And in episode 6 on Cabernet, I talked about that whole cork and bottle presentation thing and tasting and smelling and making sure you don't have a flawed bottle. When I do that, I'm also evaluating the temperature of the wine. So I've got some leftover wine here from before, and I let this warm up on purpose to 70 degrees. So let's just pretend here, this was my little tasting sample. Make sure the temperature's still up there. All right, it's cooled down a little bit, but this is at 68 degrees, which if this was a Gamay, that is too warm for a Gamay. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my little tasting of it. Yeah, too warm. It just tastes cooked to me, and I get the heat of the alcohol more intensely. So I say to the server, the wine's fine, it's good, I approve, no need to send it back, but don't pour me anymore. I'll just say no more for right now. I want to let that open up before we pour the rest of it. Chances are, if they don't recognize they've served you a wine that's too warm, they're not going to recognize the fact that the wine would actually open up better in the glass. So we're going to tell this white lie, say it's fine. We're going to let it stay in the bottle and open up a little bit before we pour it. When they go away, I'm going to take my water glass, put it in my wine glass. Now it looks like I got a glass of rosé in there from a little trace of wine. But I'm going to spend the next 2-3 minutes talking to my dinner guests, enjoying myself, letting the glass chill. I'll come back here in 2 minutes and we'll pour some wine in there and see what happens to the temperature. So hang on, I'll be right back. All right, it's been 2 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and put this back in our water glass. And now pour some wine in here. And you can put ice in your wine itself. I really don't recommend doing that because you're going to end up diluting the wine. It's going to taste way different. It's just not the same. This is a great way, by chilling the glass, to then chill the wine without actually diluting the wine itself. And if you're paying, again, if you're at a restaurant and you're paying that markup, do not settle for anything less than how that wine was intended by the winemaker. So we're going to let this sit for 2 minutes as well. I gave it a little swirl, but you can see how frosty cold that glass is. This is going to chill our wine down. I'm going to give it 2 more minutes. We'll come back and see what happens to the temperature. All right, it's not even been 2 minutes. The glass, as you can see, has lost kind of that frostiness to it. I gave it a few swirls. It smells much better now. Let's check the temperature. What'd I say? I think I said it was 68 before. We're down to 60 degrees, which is, 55, 60 on a Gamay would be absolutely perfect. So great little trick you can use. I highly recommend doing this. Use the ice bucket trick. Get a chiller or use your water glass and chill the glass itself and enjoy your red wine the way you like it and the way it was meant to be. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Wine This Week. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please like and subscribe. Join me next week as we move on to the region of Suave, Italy, and have the varietal Garganega. Until then, keep trying new wines, and as always, cheers.